I think if I move anywhere, he's going to fly off. But look at that. Isn't that incredible? There we go, Lucy, one of the species that's very happy with the fact that there's been some grass growth. Oh, there's another one. Look at it. Look at it. Taking those grass seeds. It's spectacular. I think this is the best blue waxbill sighting I've ever had on the live drives. Trying to see which grass species they're feeding off, but it's a little bit difficult from this length. But it does look like possibly, oh, my grasses are a bit rusty. I'm going to have a pick up that grass and have a closer look once these guys are finished. Maybe there's one closer to us. Let's see. There we go. Look at that. So they'll feed off a whole host of little grass seeds. Now, they are able to feed off them once they're dry as well. But of course, they will have expected or been used to a very wet summer with lots of fresh grass seeds, but they will be able to take advantage of them for a little bit longer. And even when an animal like a buffalo or zebra comes and feeds on that grass, and those little seeds will drop to the ground, and these little guys will be able to find them. Well, not only the best blue waxbill sighting I've had, also the longest. Now, how would you describe that color blue, Dave? I would almost say powder puff blue. Now, they've got very interesting nesting habits. So when they want to build a nest, they'll actively look for a paper wasp, or one of the paper wasp species that build those sort of round, not quite round, but they've got lots of cylinders where they lay their eggs, and there'll be multiple wasps that look after those nests. So they will build their little nest almost right next to, on top of the wasp nest, as an extra form of defense. Look at that. It's got to stretch up to grab those seeds. And there we go. You see, it also, a couple of seeds fall off when they do that, so they'll pick the ones up off the ground as well. Very, very cute. Num, 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 num. And you can see there how that top section of that grass has been stripped by the waxbill. Look at that, jumping on the stalk to bring it down to a good feeding height. We'll see how much of that grass stalk is left when he moves off. See how many seeds have been stripped. Obviously, now this is good for the grass as it's good for the waxbill. That waxbill will move off and defecate and deposit those seeds with a bit of fertilizer somewhere else, so they might sprout next year in the next set of rains, or end of this year in the next set of rains. So, welcome to Dylan in New York, a new viewer. Welcome to the Safari Live family, Dylan. Dylan is wondering, what is the name of that leopard we've been looking for this morning? Well, Dylan, the name of the leopard is Mvula, which means the rain. So Mvula is his name, M-V-U-L-A. So it looks like this wax bull's nearly done with his grass stalk, and he's going to jump off it. Let's see how much is left. Oh, eaten about 50%. So let's leave the wax bull to his breakfast and go see what's happening at the Buffelshoek waterhole with Jamie.
It seems as though our signal is a little bit more stable on the southern side of the dam. We're able to just chat a little bit about what Buffelshoek is looking like, and of course the current resident of Buffelshoek Dam in the form of this hippopotamus. Quite difficult to tell. I'm fairly certain that it's a male, just judging by the size and the shape of the head. They tend to have slightly more angular faces than the females. And he does look like quite a large individual, so it could be Bob the Bachelor of Buffelshoek. Could be another hippo that's decided to come in and spend the day here after a long night of foraging. Could even be the one that you guys saw at the Djuma Dam last night, or heard at the Djuma Dam last night. Wandering through, I've seen his tracks walking all the way along twin dams. It could well be this individual. And even now, his body language tells me that he's not fully comfortable in this dam, and I think it's because it's not deep enough to fully submerge him. When we drove up, he gave us this sort of backwards glance as if to say, please don't come any closer. And it's interesting the way that hippo behavior has changed over the last few weeks, and with their members opposite this side of the dam. If we can just have a look, Chandra, at the water's edge closer here. I'm looking here, sorry. You can just see how much the water levels have gone down. Some of that might have splashed up a bit when the hippo walked in, but you can see all of the wet mud along the edges. And that just shows how clearly and how rapidly the sun can act out here. Because although there is a nip to the air, we have sort of entered autumn, if we could call it that, the sun is still baking hot enough to start reducing the water levels very rapidly. This, of course, being one of Mvula's favorite spots, which is one of the reasons why we are here. No leopard tracks coming through here, though. It's more of a guess than anything else, and just one that hasn't yet paid off. Let's see if my cheeky Franklin are going to carry on squawking. They're just ahead of me here, so I'll move forward and see if they're going to continue their conversation. In between the grass.
So no tracks, and I can't hear any monkey alarm calls, so let's go check a different section. Jamie's in the northeast, and there seem to be gremlins there, so I don't want to infect my vehicle. So we're going to head to the southwest, see if we can find anything in that area. So Sarah, who's a regular and 18 years old in Ohio, says she hasn't been able to watch in a few days. Have there been any updates on the Nkahuma Pride? Well, Sarah, the Nkahuma Pride have done a disappearing act. We actually haven't seen tracks or heard anything about them in about 4 or 5 days now, but hopefully they will be turning up shortly. Last tracks I had headed into Arathusa, so maybe they've gone west out of Arathusa, but I haven't had any updates from the guys in the west. But maybe as I move towards the west and my radio comms get better, I'll have a check, give them a call on the radio, see if there are any further updates there. going to be an absolutely gorgeous day. There's barely a cloud in the sky. Just some very high, wispy, ultra stratus, if I remember my clouds correctly. Can barely make them out. But let's have a look here. There's hyena tracks for a change. And let's have a look what these ones are on this side. And it is more hyena tracks. I'm just trying to make sure that there's not a leopard track underneath them. But nope, doesn't look like it. It is such a beautiful morning, and the light is spectacular. And I think let's put you guys to the test since you're so quiet this morning. Let's find something to get your brains in gear, although I think it's evening for a lot of our viewers. So give you a brain teaser before bed. Let's start with a nice easy one. I know certain of our viewers like looking at trees as much as animals, so let's start with this tree over here. Nice tree, one of the more prominent species we see regularly out here in the Sabi Sands. It is at certain times of the year heavily favored by the pachyderms, in particular elephants, as well as a lot of other different species. So who can tell me what tree that is? And bonus points if you can get its scientific name. What tree is that? And we're going to give you two trees because that one's so easy. But let me give you a little hint. They are slightly connected, not in family, but in common name. So we've got another one on the other side here. In some ways, they might look a little similar. But if we zoom in on the bark of this one, you can see the bark slightly different, and so are the leaves. And there we go, we'll give you one little pan up of this tree and another one of the tree we just showed you. Can't say I'm not giving you enough chance to have a proper look. So who can tell me what are these two tree species? If you know the answer, or if you think you know the answer, pop me an email on questions@WildEarthTV or use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. Monkey Man is guessing, and it's definitely very much a guess. He says a buffalo thorn. Well, the one thing I can tell you, neither of those two tree species have any thorns. Or spines, for that matter, so no thorns or modified branches to be sharp, nasty spikes. Let's have a look. There is a buffalo thorn there. This particular one's been pushed down by an elephant, but you can see the leaves, that one there, are very, very small and very, very shiny, which neither of those are particularly as shiny as that. There's a fallen buffalo thorn. And then last night on the Sunset Safari, you got a question about the biggest fruit that we find out here, and that tree there is the culprit, the Kigelia africana, the African sausage tree, the largest fruit measuring over 1.2 meters long and weighing over 9 kilograms, if my memory serves me correctly. So there we go. Not many of them. I think there's only 2 on Djuma. They prefer areas around big rivers, so around the Sabi and Sand River. There are some massive specimens. Here we've only got 2 quite small ones, unfortunately. So we've got an answer through. Is that a lead tree? No, it is not. A leadwood. Oh, the sun's in my way there, sorry. Oh, what was that? It's still there. Let me just try see if we can get Dave in the right position. He's still there by the time we turn around. Nope. And he's flown off. That's unfortunate. We'll keep looking for another one. It was a little chin spot batis, very pretty little flycatcher. So well done to Donovan, Lynn, James, Richard, and many others who got the first tree right. So we're still waiting for the second tree. It is a marula tree, and James Richard is the only one to get the Latin for the bonus points, Sclerocarya birrea. So we're still waiting for the answer for the second tree. Well done to Raisa, who got the second tree right. It is a false marula, Lania schweinfurthii, or swine-30i. There's a lot of different ways to pronounce it. But well done, Raisa, spot on. So quite nice. It's not often you can sit in one spot and see a real marula and a false marula. So it was the perfect spot to start the tree quiz. Okay, so while we continue to check the south and western sectors of Djuma Private Game Reserve, Jamie has actually found an animal that possesses a heartbeat. Unlike our trees, though alive, their heart doesn't beat.
Let's just sit very quietly for a moment. I'm taking my earpiece out. The reason these kudu are so skittish is because there are other kudu or nyala barking frantically off to the west of us. I'm just going to get hold of Brent. Brent for Jamie. Brent, there's alarm calls along Central Road. Sounds like Nyala Road Junction. I'm going to follow up from the eastern side. Copy. Okay, time for us to go. These kudu, I know that they are beautiful, but they are very much hidden in the thick bush, and they're very, very skittish. And they're skittish because there are others alarm calling off to the west of us. And we were just, Chandra and myself, were just saying as they came towards us that they were unusually skittish. I'm trying to gauge exactly where those alarm calls were coming from. It's one of those tricky things to do when they are at a distance, is to figure out exactly how far and roughly where one should start searching for the culprit of causing the alarm in the kudu or the inyala. Now, kudu and inyala, and bushbuck to an extent, have the deepest alarm calls of all the antelope. Kudu having the loudest and the deepest. It's a deep bah sound. And the deep frequency, of course, allows it to travel further when moving through thick bush areas. From what I could calculate, they're exactly along the road that I wanted to go up but didn't want to risk it in case our signal disappeared. But I'm pretty sure that whatever animal is causing that alarm is starting to move towards Inyala Road North. Everybody keep your eyes peeled. It's amazing because we know, both Brent and myself know, that there is a leopard somewhere that's been moving around Vuyatela Dam and now moving further to the west. And yet finding it is not always proved to be the easiest exercise. It's definitely here somewhere though, and it's either lions or it's leopard that it causes those sorts of alarm calls from a kudu or a nyala. Sarah, I know that you were asking about the nkuhumas, and I'm not sure if Brent picked up on the answer to your question or not after I disappeared off your screens. I know that Brent updated you, but we still never found tracks of the nkuhumas crossing out of Djuma, so that it could be them as well that's causing the alarm in the various antelope species. I'm going to try and find a nice position to show you something else and gives me a chance to listen out as well. Standing by. Brent, I actually think maybe even a little way north, up Inyala Road North. Now it's right into the sun. There are two vultures hanging out in the dead tree. And I just want to stop and listen again. Maybe taking my earpiece out for the moment. The francolins are calling, but it's not really an alarm call sound. It's more just their morning communication to each other. Kudu have gone quiet. They generally only bark when they can see the threat and to alert everything, and then they go quiet once again. They prefer secrecy to a large extent. So we have two white-backed vultures that are roosting in the dead tree. That's fairly common. I don't think that means that they are settling, watching some kind of kill in progress. We've spoken a lot about the different vulture behavior and the fact that they like to roost at night in dead trees and wait for the morning to warm up so that they can jump on board with the thermals. It's only when you see them starting to fly down out of the sky, when you've got multiple vulture species moving about together, and when you see them roosting in trees with leaves, that you start to suspect that there might be something there worth investigating. And that's just because as big, bulky birds, and not necessarily the best flyers in the world, they're heavy birds, getting out of a marula tree with lots of leaves, or a jackalberry tree with lots of vegetation around them, is something that they prefer to avoid unless it means a meal or a chance to wait patiently for a meal. Vultures about, but I think just here to spend the night and wait for the thermals to start getting warm enough. And speaking about vultures, Siberia Zumi would like to know whether I've ever seen a bearded vulture. The answer is Siberia Zumi. I haven't. It's a relatively rare find, exceptionally rare find out here. I have seen an Egyptian vulture once, there was a great deal of excitement within the Kruger Park. People came from miles around, and I mean quite literally miles around. Certain birders actually jumped on planes to go and see the Egyptian vulture that decided to pay the Kruger Park a visit. Sorry, and I'm just concentrating very hard on checking. It's amazing the lengths at which birders will go to in order to be able to follow up on the presence of unusual bird species in an area. I just want to have a look at the body language of this grey go-away bird. In a funny position that it's adopted. They're also, of course, one of our first ports of call when it comes to alarm calls with their height up there. They're one of the first to spot any kind of threat. We're coming close to the junction where I think that the alarm calls came from, but I still don't think we're far enough north, and I don't think that I can go further north without risking losing my signal. Luckily, Brent is on his way, so he will be able to check the area for us. I was wanting an opportunity to just stop and listen and observe, but I also wanted to answer Siberia Zumi's question more fully about the bearded vulture, and possibly even show you a question whilst show you a question? That doesn't make any sense. It's what happens when you try to split your brain in too many directions at once. I wanted to show you a picture of what a bearded vulture or a lammergeier looks like. That is a bearded vulture, and yes, you are right about their rocky mountainous areas and cliff ledges, Siberia Zumi, and they're very much uncommon in South Africa. They only have a tiny, tiny range around the Drakensberg Mountains. I have been looking for them in the Drakensberg Mountains before, but I only managed to find a colony of Cape vultures, which was fairly exciting, but nevertheless not something that I managed to locate. There's also the palm nut vulture, which is another bird that every now and again makes an appearance in South Africa. It's another one on my list of birds to see. And another one that, if it appears, people will be jumping on planes in order to come and find them. I think that might have been Brent that I could hear accelerating. Somehow I feel as though that might have been him zooming past this junction. Let's find out what he's up to and which way he's going.
So we've moved into the same area as Jamie. I just stopped and listened now. I couldn't hear any alarms, but I'm going to go on Hyena Road, which runs parallel to Inyala Road North, where Jamie's checking. So fingers crossed.
Checking, is it okay if we roundabout? Or jealous?
Okay, so often we have leopards in that block between Buffelshoek Dam, Central Road, between the two roads, or the roads Hyena Road and Inyala Road North. So I'm going to check through here in case whatever was being alarmed at decided to come this way. Unfortunately, this is a very difficult road to see tracks on, so we're going to have to rely a lot on our ears.
It was either Inyala or Kudu, I think more likely Inyala.
Copy, thanks. I'll check Hyena Road through to the firebreak. So we're going to go for a little bit, then we're going to switch off, listen again. I can hear a very upset rattling testicular.
I'm ready, I haven't checked Inyala Road North.
Negative, I haven't done Inyala North. So what we are hoping, because there's a lot of dew around at the moment, a lot of your predators, lion and leopard, will often choose to walk down a road or a large animal path.
Check. I don't think I'll have signal though.
Just to see, and so they don't get dew on their face. Slightly uncomfortable, and the big cats would prefer to stay a little dry. Nothing yet. Okay, let's check a little bit further down. Oh dear, it looks like the elephant and buffalo have made a new wallow in the middle of the road. And we'll go around that. Oh, here's a Nyala. Wonder if those are the ones alarming. So there they're Nyala. So they've come out of this block, but there could be multiple Nyala around, so it might not have been the ones that were alarm calling. Some more up ahead, scampering across the road.
Yeah, Malum, I'm going to come to the west. I'm going to do for you 10 this morning.
Jamie, I've got Nyala coming out of the block between Nyala North and Hyena Road, probably about opposite where that big tree fell over the road.
Copy, I'm exactly there on Nyala Road North. I'll check the area very carefully.
So the flies are out in force at the moment. Did you see the flower there? Zoom. There we go. Oh no, that's a little bit. Where are you looking? Are you looking a little bit to the right? There. There we go. There's the yellow Commelina. So we haven't heard any alarm calls since we've been here. It's possible that those, whatever was alarm calling at whatever predators around, might have skedaddled from the predator's presence. Genevieve, welcome Genevieve, who's in New York, would like to know, can an animal's flight or fight response vary between the sexes? So between male and female? Most definitely, and a lot of that is all dependent on babies. So they'll have different flight and fight responses with the females, depending on they have young or not, and with males it could be also in terms of defense, whether they're defending potential mates or whether an elephant's in must. So it can depend, but yes, it can vary between the sexes. What you see? So definitely worth taking one's time a little, going slowly and checking. Stop and listen again shortly. So I stop up ahead where I can see a bit further down the road. And while we stop and listen, let's go see if Jamie's had more luck than we have.
also checking very carefully. I've stopped to observe the behavior of this grey go-away bird once again. Also looking rather puffed up, but actually quite strange at this angle. Almost didn't realize what it was initially. This bird has been quiet the whole time. And we did just pass a male kudu on Inyala Road North that looked much more relaxed than the kudu we saw earlier. An interesting one. And Brent and myself driving parallel to each other to try and see if we can't figure out where this leopard has gone to, or if indeed it is a leopard. Most likely it is, though. That makes the most sense, particularly with the tracks that Brent had this morning. So he's driving on the western side of this river system, and it's divided into a couple of different tributaries of really nice, perfect drainage line habitat, which leopards love to go in and hide in. I think that's probably where Mvula is moving through. If indeed it is Mvula, it's also Gajina's new favorite area. Anna Maria said perhaps I should say Karula's name and she might show up, since all the animals seem to appear when mentioned. It's happened once or twice, I must say, and it's made for some wonderful, entertaining moments on Safari Live. Anna Marie, I will say that the one animal it's never worked with is Karula. Karula has a magnificent tendency to lose me about 5 minutes after I see her, which is fair enough. If she doesn't want company, she doesn't want company. That being said, I've had some spectacular sightings with her as well, where I've spent plenty of time with her and she's been perfectly relaxed. But she certainly doesn't appear she does tend to appear at the drop of a hat and then disappear again for days at a time. That's fairly normal behavior for her right now with cubs. We have absolutely no idea where she's now deading her cubs and where she's put them. Suspects that she might have moved them north back onto Djuma, but to be completely honest, that's only because we've seen her tracks moving through the area fairly regularly. We absolutely do not know that for certain. And I find myself once again coming back to Buffelshoek Dam. I just have missed him. Apparently, Brent mentioned that late October is a really nice time to come and visit the bush, since there's very little vegetation and therefore you can see really nice and clearly into the vegetation. I mean, at the moment, after this rain, it has become so thick in these drainage lines and even just on a normal road that spotting animals has become that much harder. Now, Megan, definitely late in October is a nice time to come, and it's also still, although it does get quite warm, it's still cool enough for the nocturnal animals to occasionally be scurrying about at night or at a sort of early evening. But you were wondering, when is the best time to see babies? And the answer to that is it depends which babies you want to see, of course. Baby leopards and baby lions you could see at any time of the year. They don't have a set breeding season. But if you want to see most antelope babies, then the time to be around is sort of around November, December, through to January and February, depending on which antelope you would like to see. Let's just check this path very carefully. I think we're a little bit further ahead of this leopard. I think it's still moving towards us rather than has already moved through this area. This is a perfect hiding place. Mvula loves this drainage line system. He loves to tuck himself away in there. Oh, we come back. Okay, we seem to be back up. I'm actually going to stop at Buffelshoek Dam because I feel a little bit trapped in terms of where I can go. I can't go north. I can't seem to go south either, and I probably can't really go back. I suppose I could go straight back on myself and see if that doesn't work. Oh, we're back at Buffelshoek Dam. Voila. Having run out of any other options in terms of where we can go. The animal's telling us where to find them, but the signal not necessarily keeping up with it. What I do want to do is race across to Buffelshoek Cut Line so that I have slightly better signal. So what I'll do for now is send you across to Brent. I'll race across and I'll be back with you shortly.
So we've looped through Hyena Road. We're now on the fire break and no tracks yet. So it is possible whatever those Inyala were alarming at is in that little dry river system that comes out of the Buffelshoek Dam. So I think what's going to happen is, just in case the animal's going either way, Jamie and I are probably just going to swap routes, and she's going to go down where we've just come from and we're going to go down where she's just come from. Thought I heard a squirrel there for a second, but I did hear a squirrel. Let's go have a look. Anne says she absolutely loves we're going slowly and we can stop and listen. She says she feels a lot closer to the bush. Well, we're going to go listen again shortly, Anne, don't you worry. That squirrel was alarming somewhere in this little dry river system. Now, of course, the problem with squirrels is being so small that lots of things eat them, so they find many reasons to alarm call through a day. No, it's a hyena track. Listen again. Can you hear the orioles? The squirrel's gone quiet, not a good sign. Well, let's carry on. Check on the eastern side of this little dry riverbed. Clayton's wondering, are there times when animals' alarm calls might work to their disadvantage? I mean, it is possible, Clayton, but normally it'll work. It will almost always work to their advantage. At the time, it might work to the predator that's being alarmed at's disadvantage. For example, if a leopard is being alarmed at and there are lions close by, the lions and hyenas might go investigate what's being alarmed at. But generally, those alarm calls will notify all the other species So for Nyala alarm, all the impala and kudu and bushbuck will take notice of that and realize that there is a predator in the area. That looks like the elephants pushed a little branch over the little 2-track I want to take. Let me rephrase, more of a tree than a branch, so I'm just trying to sneak around it. Sure, I haven't used this little 2-track in a long time. And the last time was with Mvula, actually. And watch out, Dave, that is a very thorny tree. While we continue to check through here, what's that? Well, as I said, while we continue to check through here, let's go see if Jamie's having a little more luck than we are.
Oh, this just gives Brent a chance to really concentrate on following up on those alarm calls. I've moved a little bit further out.
So we're just listening in the bottom of this little river system now. Unfortunately, everything is quiet. Now, we often see the brown ivory tree, which is the big one. Now, this is a red ivory tree next to us here. And I won't lie, I was looking for a little snack, but it doesn't look like any fruits on it at the moment. They've got tiny little red fruit that are incredibly sweet and tasty. But no fruits just yet. Strangely enough, the red ivories on my home reserve just outside Hoedspruit, they've already fruited, but they did have a bit more rain this year than we have here. And fortunately, outside my bedroom, there's quite a big one. So often be found picking the red ivory fruit. Okay, let's continue on. And we've got some Natal Franklin here, and they're looking quite relaxed. So I'll see if we can get a view of them. And they scampered off. What was that? There's a little... What was that? Was that a little steenbok? Unusual to see a steenbok here. Oh, it was a duiker. It was a duiker. And he just ran through the middle of those Franklin. Now listen. Absolute panic. Now, did those Franklin suddenly get panicked by the running duiker? Or did the running duiker spark a predator to pop its head up? And we'll go have a look shortly. But I think more than likely they got panicked by the running duiker. As you can see, no one's used this little 2-track road in a while. I'm just going to go round in case whatever we're looking for might have popped through past Buffalo's Hook on the other side, and just really make sure we check this area extensively. Megan would like to know how many different types of squirrel do we get here? We have one, Megan. The Smith's bush squirrel, or just the bush squirrel. There are a few different types of bush squirrels throughout Africa, but here we only have one. And in South African, I think, if I remember correctly, we only have 3 different types of squirrel in the whole country. And that's not counting the exotic squirrels that live in Cape Town that were introduced by Cecil John Rhodes. Those are the same squirrels you would find in the UK. Now, the indigenous squirrels, we have the little bush squirrel, which we see here. You have a red forest squirrel, or a red squirrel, that occurs along coastal KwaZulu-Natal and into Mozambique. And then in the very dry Kalahari areas, you have the ground squirrels. So there's the 3 squirrel species for South Africa. So I'm pretty sure that those Franklin had a panic at the Dyker running through, but I'm just going to double check. We haven't heard anything else or seen anything else really, so we might as well just check. And hopefully I'm wrong, and it was the fact that the Dyker was spotted by a leopard who stood up, and that's what caused the squirrels to go bananas. I mean, not the squirrels, the Franklin to go bananas. But there is the Franklin, and he's looking quite relaxed now. So, as I said, pretty sure it was the Dyker, little crested Franklin. So, not looking like there's a leopard close by just yet. Oh, we haven't used any of these roads in so long, they've become quite overgrown. So, Christopher, who's in Arizona, is wondering, are there any creepy crawlies that Jamie or I are afraid of? Speaking for myself, not really. I have some respect for. There's certain ones that irritate me immensely, such as these little stable flies, these little biting flies, and of course the mosquito. They're not afraid of, but find them quite irritating. So we've now come on that little road that comes through to the northern side of Buffelshoek Dam, and there's that hippo, and he's got a hitchhiker at the moment. And it looks like a little, almost looks like that one could be a marsh terrapin from this distance. Let's have a closer look. No, it's a hinged terrapin. You can see the little angular spots on the top. A marsh terrapin's got a much flatter shell. Okay, so not much has changed since you were here with Jamie a little while ago. As we head on past that hippopotami, Lucy in Indiana is wondering how far can a hippo's call be heard. Now, from a human point of view, you can probably hear it. Oh, look at that, that's quite interesting. From about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 kilometers. But if we look at the dam wall, you can see some elephants have had some great fun rubbing up against it. You can see that to the right there, Dave. Right. There we go. And you can see the eddies have been having a great time leaning up and rubbing against the dam wall. They're not here now. So there's a spot here that a lot of the leopards, a big animal path that a lot of the leopards who come through this area like to use. And it goes off down there. So just have a quick look if I can see a track on it. The ground's very hard at the moment. I'm just going to have a look a little bit further to where it's a bit softer there, and then we'll continue on. Just hyena tracks, unfortunately. So I'm going to loop again around now to the sort of southeastern side of this little riverbed. So while we're moving on, let's just have a quick look at another flower. And there we go. There it is, down, Dave, the purple ones, there we go. There we go, a little solanum, or poison apple. So the fruits will start off as green, and they will become yellow, and they are highly noxious, but very interesting about this plant as we move on. The Malagasy people of Madagascar will eat the fruit as a rite of passage. So, just hang on 1 second, sorry. I spotted something. I just want to make sure it's a stick, not a crocodile. And it is a stick. I thought there might be a crocodile on Buffalo's Hook for a second, but it's not. It's just a stick. But so the Malagasy, when they're coming into manhood, will eat the poison apple, which is highly poisonous when it's ripe. So they eat it when it's green, and it doesn't have any effect. But when it is yellow and ripe, it is very poisonous, and it can kill you if you eat it. But so young Malagasy boys, in their passage to manhood, are made to eat the non-poisonous version, the green version. And it is related to tomatoes. That little plant. We might have a bit of signal breakup in the bottom of this hill. So it looks like Jamie has had a gremlin outbreak, a technological gremlin. So it's eating her signal, and tech team are busy with gremlin exterminating tools, trying to get rid of them. So you are stuck with me for now. Aqua says she loves the gardenia I was talking about earlier, and very wonderful scented flower, and she's wondering, do we have any jasmine plants here? Yes, in fact we do. We have 2 different species. I haven't seen either of them flowering this year, but I will keep my eye out. They could start flowering now that we've had that little bit of rain. When I used to live at Londolozi, I actually transplanted a jasmine and grew it all over my wall. Mandy is wondering, are there any exotic flowers in bloom? And Mandy, yes, there are. We have one particularly nasty exotic flower called the red star zena, and there's a few of them in bloom on quarantine at the moment. But the one good thing about this really dry weather is it did seriously deplete their numbers this year. Erlene is in the Lone Star State, Texas, and she's watching with a friend of hers and her friend's son, who is 9 years old, and his name is Aiden. Hi, Aiden. Aiden would like to know, do we ever fish in any of these pans or dams? And how big can the catfish get? Well, the ones in the Arathusa dam. Well, we don't really. Me as an avid fisherman, the fishing's not so great in there. There's pretty much only catfish left in a lot of the pans after the drought. There might still be some tilapia at Arathusa, but how big can the catfish get? Well, this particular species, probably in Arathusa, you're probably looking at about 20 pounds, 25 pounds being the biggest. It is the sharp-toothed catfish. Strangely enough, for those in Florida, it is actually a very big problem in Florida. It's one of the invasive fish species that's wiping out the local freshwater fish populations in Florida. Along with lots, Florida's got a lot of bad exotic fish, the sharp-toothed catfish, snakehead, peacock bass. So a lot of exotics being introduced into the waterways of Florida. But this particular catfish species, the sharp-toothed catfish, is one of the biggest freshwater species in Africa, and it can reach weights of around 75 kilograms, and I'm not quite sure what that is it's over 100, well over 100 pounds, probably close on 200 pounds. I'm trying to remember now. 45 kgs is 100 pounds. So, yes, just under 200 pounds that sharp-toothed catfish can get. So, just listening again. And they're incredibly adaptable fish. They can breathe air from gulping air. They can also breathe through their gills. And they can also cross land. They can walk between different bodies of water as they dry up. And they can do up to a couple of kilometers to get to another water source. And so there's a spider web. Okay. Very upset Franklin just exploded out of the bush and flying from the ground up, which means it's a terrestrial threat, a threat on the ground and not an aerial threat. So could it be that the Franklin are going to give us the final clue to find whatever those Inyala that Jamie heard alarming were looking at? So they took off out of here. Sounding very upset. Have your eyes scanning. Good man. But while we search, I'll chat a bit more about catfish species in Africa. Now, we do have a lot. The most widespread is that sharp-toothed catfish. And my personal best is around 30 kilograms. I haven't been fishing in a while. I think my next leave I'm going to go fishing again. No, it's a stump. You can see some Franklin there, but I don't think those are the ones that were alarming. Come on, kitty cat. Where are you hiding? I'm going to keep quiet here and listen again for a second. Maybe we'll get another clue. Safari Dean's wondering, are there many species of animal that have been introduced into South Africa? Now, we do have the odd exotic species, but not too many. Quite often, in certain cases, the indigenous species will outcompete. But in the farming areas of KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape, and I think also the Western Cape, there are some exotic or feral populations of fallow deer that were introduced from England. I think we probably have a few more exotic bird species, and of course the squirrels in Cape Town. But probably one of the worst exotic species introduced is a bird called the Indian myna, which is a type of starling, but very aggressive and often outcompetes indigenous bird species by attacking their nests and breaking them up and killing their babies. And they breed incredibly quickly, and they're highly intelligent. It's one of the few bird species you can teach to talk. I'm trying to think now. I think probably the biggest invasive species problem is with plants. Bugweed, lantana, chromalina, prickly pears, black wattle, blue gum. Well, Erlene and Aiden, it's my absolute pleasure to answer that question. Aiden, I love to fish as well, and I've been lucky. I've fished all over the place, all over the world and all over Africa. It's very seldom that I leave home without my travel fishing rod, which is a little fly rod that fits into about this much. So I'll always have a fishing rod with me. Fishing rod and the camera. Can't go anywhere without them. Okay, so nothing further. I'm going to try sneak a little bit further down this road. Probably go a little bit longer and then we'll stop and listen again. So we had a look at a marula tree and a false marula tree. Unfortunately, this is not a good spot to see either, where we are at the moment. But Clayton is wondering, why do they call it a false marula and what is the difference? Well, it has a similar bark, but not quite the same, and a slightly similar shape to a marula. So if you don't know the trees too well, that's easy to confuse them. But I think for me the biggest difference is if you look at the leaves, the false marula leaves are very shiny and waxy, whereas the normal marula leaves are quite a lot sort of more dull and paler. Absolutely no tracks. It's going to have to remain a mystery to what those Inyala were alarming at. Maybe they saw their own shadow. Well, Lynn says she bets a leopard's going to show up before the end of drive. According to Final Control, Lynn, we have 1 minute and 20 seconds for that to happen in. Lynn, I do hope you are right. See that bird there, about there. I don't want to go any closer in case it flies. So, there we go. So there we have one of our vagrants that hasn't departed yet. A cuckoo, Now, which cuckoo is it? So we have two cuckoos that are black and white and look quite similar. It's going to be quite difficult to tell from this particular position. So it's either a Jacobin or a Levaillant. I'm going to try sneak a little bit closer. So the Levaillant has a very, oh, he moved, streaky breast, while the Jacobin has a white breast. Where did he go? You got him? Dave says he's got him. So again, facing the wrong way for us to get a nice ID. But if we're patient, no, there we go. So a Levaillant's cuckoo, there's another one. Well done, Dave. You can see that streaky breast of the Levaillant's cuckoo. Beautiful bird. And it's going to be leaving shortly and heading for warmer climes as soon as we start getting a bit colder. Very noisy cuckoos, but not a particularly pretty call. So most of you guys will know that cuckoos are what we call brood parasites. And for those who are not sure what, they're moving, Dave.
No, one's
used to. So brood parasites. Oh, there it goes. Let me just see. I'm going to move forward a bit. The other one's going to sit out in the open there nicely. You got him? There we go. So brood parasites will lay their eggs in other birds' nests and let the other birds do all the work. So it is a very interesting life strategy. And from their size, they generally like to match their babies with normal sized, or a bird to similar sizes. But these guys are very, very, I'm sorry, I'm getting washed up there. Oh, off it goes. But their favorite brood parasite, so the species of bird that they will choose to lay their eggs in this area is almost exclusively arrow-marked babblers. And in other areas, they also choose the other babbler species. And I said they didn't have the nicest call, so I will play it for you. Why is it not working? Technology is getting to me again. There we go. There's that call. Not the nicest, but very distinct. So, speaking of cuckoos, Siberia, who's one of our zoomies, would like to know what the call of a black cuckoo sounds like. So where I was taught a black cuckoo when I was learning to bird as a young boy was, he says, "I'm so sad." But let's let the bird do the talking, probably a bit better than me. There we go. I'm so sad. There we go. That is the black cuckoo. Megan says, thank you to FC, Jamie and Brent for answering all my questions today. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. Well, Megan, we've enjoyed answering your questions. Here we go. White-backed vultures getting on the move as it gets warmer, looking for the thermals. So after these cold, overcast days, they will be ecstatic that they get to ride the hot airwaves in search of something to munch upon. So, oh, into the sun he went. So you can see a big bird like a vulture takes a lot of energy to flap those wings. So that's why they've developed that skill of finding those thermals, the hot air rising off the ground, and then they'll just get into that hot air, lock off their wings, and ride the thermal in a circular motion until they get to their chosen height. And from there they can glide about and see if there's anything dead for them to eat. Evie in Long Island is wondering if I know which bird flies at the highest height and what height it could be. Evie, I'm not sure exactly if there's which is the highest of the high. I know vultures have been recorded at the same height as commercial airliners, which I think is, I can't remember exactly how high that is. I'm trying to rack my brain. I used to know. Yeah, I think my brain wants to say 32,000 feet above sea level. And also, strange enough, little swallows, barn or European swallows, have also been recorded at that height. So I don't think there's going to be too many birds that can top them, but as I said, I might be completely wrong. So I'd say probably vultures and possibly some of the other big predatory eagles, but I think vultures are the top of the pops. And strange enough, another flying thing we see a lot around here that has also been recorded at 32,000 feet, I'm pretty sure it is 32,000 feet now, is a dung beetle. Can you believe it? Yeah, so dung beetles have been recorded as high as commercial airliners. Whether it's 32,000 feet or around there, I'm not 100% sure. I'm trying to rack my brain to remember. There we go. So it was 30, but not 32, 37,000 feet, and it was the Ruppel's vulture. So we do occasionally, very rarely get Ruppel's vultures down here in southern Africa. They sort of arrive as lost individuals, but they are more common up in East Africa, along the Serengeti, Great Rift Valley. Ruppel's vultures are quite common. So they've been recorded at 37,000 feet, which is the height of a commercial airliner. And also, the second highest flying animal is the bar-tailed goose, who's been recorded at 28,000 foot. So obviously that single swallow that was seen there was very confused, maybe a bit lightheaded with altitude sickness. Well, the Step brothers would like to know what is the fastest flying bird. Now, there is one who beats all birds, and that is the peregrine falcon in its dive to pounce on birds from above. So a peregrine falcon will actually fly, will see a dove or other bird it wants to eat above, and it'll plummet straight down, hit it in the middle of the back, and then lock its talons in, and the peregrine falcon gets to terminal velocity, which is around 200 and something kilometers an hour, if I remember correctly. So that is the fastest bird. And most deadly bird, well, it depends on what you are. If you are a snake, the most deadly bird out here for you is either going to be a ground hornbill or a secretary bird. If you are a dove, it's going to be the peregrine falcon or one of the little accipiters, the little goshawks or sparrowhawks. If you are a flying ant, it could be any bird. If you are a small antelope, it's going to be the martial eagle, which is the biggest eagle we get here. There we go, I was spot on. Terminal velocity is 200 kilometers an hour. But we are drawing to the end of the sunrise safari. And unfortunately, Jamie is still infested with gremlins. Hopefully, the tech team will be able to sort that out. But it looks like the leopards continue to evade us. Well, no lions on property. I'm convinced there are leopards here. We just haven't been able to find them. Hopefully our luck will change on the sunset safari and there'll just be a plethora of leopards at every corner. So from Dave, myself, and Jamie, and Jean-Ray, we'll see you this afternoon.